Hey gang, Neil here. Thanks for tuning in again. We pick up where we left off from the last video. If you remember, the last video we made the value scale, and I mentioned that with this first set of videos, we're going to focus really primarily on constructing your tools, making the tools that you're going to be using throughout your painting process. We started with the value scale. Tonight and for the next few videos, we're going to deal with the color wheel. And the reason I'm going to break it up into a few videos is it's a time-intensive, labor-intensive process, and I don't want to bore everyone with one super long video going through it. I figure we'll break it up into small chunks just like I do in my classroom setting. So, pardon me. The charts, the tools that we're making, I mentioned last time in the last video, are based on the Munsell color system, Munsell color system. I'm not going to get into the particulars about the system. Everyone has enough time right now. Google Munsell, Munsell color system. There'll be plenty of things to read to get you up to speed on who Albert Munsell was, who created the system, and really the ins and outs of how it systematizes and lays out color. But that's the system that I base my tools off of that we use here in the studio. The Munsell system breaks up color into three particular aspects or dimensions. So anytime you look or think of a color, you need to think of three particular qualities. Its hue, its value, and its chroma. Hue is the name of the color or where it falls in the spectrum of colors. Is it red? Is it blue? Is it green? Etc. That is its hue. Value, if you remember from the discussion from the last video, is the degree of lightness or darkness compared to black or white. And chroma is the intensity of the color, its brightness or dullness. So each one of these tools that we're creating visualizes or creates a visual tool so that you can think about that hue, value, and chroma relating to color. Obviously, the value scale dealt just with value, degree of lightness or darkness compared to black or white. The color wheel is going to deal with hue and value. And finally, at the end, we're going to make chroma charts, which deals with brightness or dullness of the hues that are on our color wheel. So the tools that you're going to need, at least to get you started, you need at least 2 square panels. Now I'm going to switch 1 second. Let me switch. There we go. You need 2 square panels. Now, what I mean by panels is it could be illustration board, it could be corrugated cardboard, chipboard. I know when I originally made my color wheels way back when in the 90s with my teacher, Michael Aviano, he had us cut masonite panels. I have just 2 pieces of cut canvas here because I went to reach for some illustration board today, but found out that I was out. Sadly, my local art supplier, there was a fire the other day, so I couldn't get any board there. My kingdom for a piece of illustration board, but I've got plenty of canvas, so I just cut 2 pieces of 14 by 14 inch canvas, and I gave it a coat of neutral gray. If you remember from our last video, you remember what a neutral is. It's a gray that doesn't have either a warm or cool bias. Now, I didn't use oil paint to tone these. I always keep on hand Golden brand acrylics makes a series of neutral grays, Munsell specific neutral grays. So I always keep some neutral 5 on hand. I also keep some 7 and a couple other values, but definitely I keep the neutral 5 on hand in case I need to tone any of the materials that I work with. So whether you use the neutral 5 from Golden Acrylic or you get some white, titanium white acrylic and some black and maybe a little bit of the raw umber, I would definitely suggest toning your surface that you're going to make the color wheel out of so that you're not working on white. If you remember from the last lecture I mentioned, anytime you put a color on white, it's going to look darker than it actually is. It's going to appear darker. So it's best to do these on a toned surface. Like I said, I toned each one of these. I've got 2. I toned each one of these a 5 neutral gray. So I have 2 14 by 14 inch surfaces that I prepared with a neutral gray. You're going to need a ruler, a compass, a protractor, a pencil, and hopefully not, but an eraser is always handy to have. So the few tools that we're going to need just to lay this out, and that's really what I want to cover tonight, is just laying out the color wheels. Now the reason we have two, I'm just going to move these over to the side. The reason we have two color wheels, one of them is going to lay out the various hues around the color circuit, or the color wheel, and we're going to put out strings. I'm going to show you what those mean, what that looks like in a second. Strings meaning degrees of light or dark of a particular hue. So one of them will be dealing with the various color families and values of them. The other one will be what is called a pigment file. And a pigment file is where you're going to file, or it helps you categorize your entire paint box over the course of your painting career as you begin to buy, or you buy other pigments that are not found on the color wheel that I'm going to show you. Again, we'll deal with this as we go, but that's why you have two. One is for the color wheel, one is for what is called a pigment file. So what your wheel is going to look like in the end is this. Now, I had this laid out on a computer. We're not going to be doing that with you or with the one we're going to be creating in the videos. It's going to be a little more crude, but it still at least gets the information out. And you, over time, once you understand how to make it, can get as finicky or as relaxed with the construction as you want, as long as the relevant materials are out on the color wheel. So let's go over some specifics about the Munsell color wheel. The Munsell color wheel, unlike the traditional color wheel that we probably all grew up with, traditional color wheel deals with three primaries, right? Red, yellow, and blue. The Munsell color wheel has 5 primaries: yellow, red, purple, blue, and green. And as I said before, you can go on the Munsell Color System site. You can read all about it. I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of why, because I want these videos to be short and sweet and show you how to construct this. I'm sure over time in some of the lectures I'll be talking about the whys of the system, but for now let's just deal with that it has 5 primaries, 5 secondaries, and the secondaries are just combinations of the primaries. So, and the thing you'll notice also, primary colors have 1 letter. Secondary colors, which are a combination of the primaries, have 2 letters. In this case, between yellow and red, we have yellow-red. Yes, it's orange, but in the system it's called yellow-red. One of the things I loathe, the only thing I loathe about this system is the language. Instead of orange, it is yellow-red. But I understand the idea. It's a combination of these two, so it's just a combination of those 2 names. Instead of orange, it is yellow-red. So we have 5 primaries: yellow, red, purple, blue, and green, and 5 secondaries: yellow, red, red, purple, purple, blue, blue, green, green, yellow. 5 primaries, 5 secondaries, but we've gone one step further to make a really complete color wheel. We've added tertiaries, a 3rd order of color. So you'll notice the primaries have 1 letter, secondaries have 2 letters, the tertiaries or 3rd order of color has 3 letters. And it's just a combination of primary and secondary. So between yellow and yellow-red is yellow, yellow-red. Or, again, for those of us that still struggle, even with all the years I've used this, still have the old 3 primary nomenclature in our head: yellow-orange, orange, red-orange. And probably over the course of the lectures, you're going to hear me use that because I've never quite gotten used to using yellow, yellow-red, yellow-red, and red, yellow-red, but we all have our cross to bear. So we have 5 primaries, 5 secondaries, and 10 tertiaries: yellow, yellow, red, red, yellow, red, 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 purple, purple, red, purple, 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 blue, blue, purple, blue, 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 green, green, blue, green, 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 yellow, and yellow, green, yellow. I'll make sure to call all of this out in the comments section or my description section. So don't worry. I mean, certainly follow along, but I'll make sure to actually document this on the video so that you're clear about the nomenclature, and I'll be adding tubes of paint to that. So I get it, and you'll see when I pull the colors out eventually, it's a lot of colors. I get it. A lot of these colors, as you're going to find, are just mixtures between two other colors. And we'll talk about how if you want to streamline this and just do the primaries and secondaries, you can certainly do that. But I would say, having used this color wheel or something very similar to it for the last 25 years, this has really done me well. I've never hit a situation where I couldn't use just what was on here to get me by in a situation. Every once in a while, I might need some other colors, other pigments that are particular to certain situations like landscape or portrait, or sometimes still life with florals. But really, this is primarily the color wheel in one way or another that I've been using for the last 25 years. So again, I know it seems like it might be daunting, or it seems daunting to look at it, but that's why we'll take it bit by bit. Once you get the gist of how this is laid out, it will not be a problem, I guarantee it. So this is what we're going for. I'm going to just hold on, bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to put this in the corner so that you can see that as we go. You can visualize where we're going with how we're laying this out. So this is what we're going for the color wheel. As I said, the pigment file, which is the second one, we'll deal with that when we get there. But this is what your color wheel is going to look like when we're all done with this process. So I'm going to move this over. So the first thing we want to do, as I said, because we're going to be doing this by hand, I don't expect that it's going to look as neat and clean as the one that was done on the computer printed board, but that's okay. As I said, as long as you have your colors laid out, that's all we need. So that's the important thing to recognize why we're doing this, and this is what helped me a lot when I first did this in my teacher, Michael Aviano's class. It takes your paint box and lays it all out in front of you. It doesn't give you every combination of color, but it gives you enough, because you noticed, I'll pull this back for 1 second, it lays out these 20 hues. It lays out a series of values for each hue, right? A string for each hue. The benefit is it creates almost a color catalog. It lays out these colors that are in your paint box systematically in a series of values, so that as you're painting, if you have your color wheel around, it's almost like having a color encyclopedia sitting right next to you. But this color encyclopedia is not some random encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia of the color that is in or available at your fingertips in your paint box. So we're going to lay this out. So what I was going to say is, it doesn't matter how neatly or how roughly this is laid out. The point is, we want to take the colors that are going to be in your paint box, if you get the colors that I'm mentioning, and it lays them out visually so that you can see them. You can see what your options are in your paint box. The Munsell color wheel, any color wheel, it's not magic. It doesn't make your paintings for you. Just like the value scale, all it does is it organizes visually the things that are available to you in your paint box, so that it will hopefully help you when you're painting to see where color families are, where they fit in the spectrum, or eventually how to mix them together to look for the color, find the color that you need. So where we start then, we're going to start just on one of these 14 by 14 panels. As I said, I've got canvas here toned to 5 gray, 5 value gray neutral. You'll notice, sorry, there's a gnat in here, excuse me. The only thing I've done so far to this is I've put my centers in, my vertical and horizontal centers. That's it. Right angles, so I have my vertical and horizontal center. That's where I start. I did that on both of them. It's hard to see, I know, but that's what's there. I'm going to start by taking my compass and my pencil. I assume all of you If you don't have a compass, which all of you, I know that for those of you that have kids, I'm sure you have a compass somewhere in the house. If you don't, what is it, 99 cents, can be picked up at Walmart, anywhere. So, I'm sorry, a protractor. Sorry, I said compass, protractor. Get yourself a protractor. We're going to lay the protractor across the horizontal center, or the horizontal center, so that the opening is right dead center in the middle of my canvas here. I'm going to measure off every 18 degrees. What I want in the end is I want 20 spaces all around the color wheel. To do that, I'm going to start by just making 10 spaces across the top, then take my ruler and create my bicycle spokes all the way through, which will give me my 20 spaces. So every 18 degrees, I'm going to make a mark. So starting at 18, then at 36, 54, 72. Of course, we hit 90 degrees then 108, 126, 144, and 162. That should give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Should give us 20 as we go around. So I've made a mark every 18 degrees around 1/2. I already have the vertical and horizontal established. Take my ruler and add my spokes. Easy. And as I said, those of you who are more computer savvy, you can do what I did, or actually had done for me, and get on the computer and maybe make a digital file that lays out the color wheel. That's up to you. For those Neanderthals like me, I actually like to get my hands dirty, so I don't mind doing this. As a matter of fact, the only thing I mind about doing this is I recently told my students when we were having class that I've made so many color wheels in the last 25 years that I vowed never, ever to make one ever again. But obviously times change. What's the saying? There's announcing your plans is the easiest way to hear God laugh. Well, here we are. Here I am making another color wheel. So, if all goes well, I know it's hard to see, but if all goes well, once I'm done, I should have 20 spokes for my color wheel. Once you have the spokes in, grab your compass, measure from the center, measure out 6 inches, make a mark, take your compass, make your circle. This 12-inch circle that you're creating is for the outer ring, which is called the hue circuit. Then we're going to start measuring to put in our values. So we've got from the center, measure out 6, make your circle. from the center. So now we're going to start making the smaller dots, which this is just our value scale from values 9 to 1. Measure up from the center on that central axis. Measure 5 1/4 inches. Make a mark. Then every 1/2 inch until you have 9 marks. So starting here, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2, 1 1/2, 3, 2, 4, 2 1/2, 5, 3, 6, 3 1/2, 7, 4, pardon me, 8, 4 1/2, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oops, I think I added an extra one. 1, 2, yes, this should be from, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, to 4 inches. Only to 4 inches. In the end, again, you want 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Once you have the 9 marks, you're going to go right back through with your compass and lightly make a circle at each one. All this does is it marks off spots where you're going to put the value for each string. Just dark enough that you can see it. If I get a little heavy-handed, it's only so that you can see it. I don't want to drop too much graphite on here or it's going to mix in with some of the paint. So by the time I get done, I should have, let's hope I got it here, 1 ring on the outside edge. That's our hue circuit. And then 9 rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. What is it, 9 rings to rule them all? Think of that. 9 rings on the interior. Because if you remember from the last video, in the Munsell system, there are 11 total values. 10 is white, 0 is black, and there are 9 grays in between. Well, these 9 spaces are going to be for 9 values of each one of the hues that we put down. So, do that on one. Move to the next one. Do the same thing. Yep. Started with my center. Take my... And I'll do it again just for the repetition. Just for the repetition. Some of my students who might be watching this, you might be saying, hey, wait a second. Now, I remind you, the first one was the value scale color wheel, which is what's in the corner. Sorry, my alarm went off. That's about 25 minutes, so I'm not going to stay too much longer. The value scale color wheel was the first one. The second thing we're creating is called a pigment file. What I was about to say is some of my students might be saying, hey, wait a second, we don't make a pigment file in class. Yeah, I used to have everyone make it years ago, but I realized that 99% of people never used it. But now we have the time, so I might as well just go through it. I've got a wider audience, those of you that find it helpful, and we'll talk about why you use it and how you're going to put it to use eventually as we go through this. If you find it helpful, great. If not, then maybe you can make a second color wheel and just keep one in the studio and keep one in your bag, whatever. So the first thing I ruled out was the value scale color wheel. Now I'm ruling out the pigment file. So I'm going to do the same thing. I start with my vertical and horizontal centers. I'm going to mark off with my protractor every 18 degrees. I'm sorry, yes, every 18 degrees. Sorry about that. Sorry, I've got a paper here and I need to consult it to remind me where the numbers are. 54, 72, 90, 118, there we go. I'm sorry, 108. 126, 144, 162. So I've got my marks made, put my spokes in. The only thing that's going to be different here is you're going to see I don't have to put the 9 values on the interior. You'll see here in a second. And when we get to actually talking at length about the pigment file and the purpose and its use, you'll see why we're not going to be worried about putting the values in. That should do it. So once I have the spokes in, measure out from the center 6 inches. Oops, there we go. Take my compass and make my circle. Same as we did last time. The circle, this outer circle is for the hue circuit, which again, we'll talk about all of this as we go. Stop there. With the pigment file, which is that second one, you don't need to go any further. So one of them has the 9 rings that rule them all on the inside, plus the 10th ring at the outside. The pigment file just has the 20 spokes and the outside ring for the hue circuit. That's it. Hey, sorry about the cut. I made a little bit of a blunder at the end of the last video, which is why it cut and transitioned to this. That's what I get for filming this after 10 hours of painting. I just was trying to, I wanted to end that the segment with saying that usually when I have people do the color wheel, the other thing I'll have them do immediately as soon as they finish laying it out is to mark it. Mark the hue names so that it's really clear. So just hold on one second. There. Yeah, I recommend it because, as you probably can see, once you have this laid out, it can get a little visually confusing. So it's best to take a marker, either a Sharpie or I'm going to use, I have these acrylic pens, and mark the hues around the color wheel. Also mark the value scale color wheel and the pigment file so that you can differentiate between the two. So that's the first thing I'll do, is at least mark the value scale color wheel. And mark the hues around. Always start with the yellow at the 12 o'clock position and then moving clockwise from yellow to, yellow, yellow, red to, just move this up a little bit, get the pen out of the way here, to yellow, red. You notice I'm leaving a little bit of space in here because I'm going to be putting a swatch of paint right there, so leave a little space between the edge of the circle and your hue designation. So yellow, 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 red, yellow, red, red, yellow, red, 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 might have to squeeze this one in, red, red, purple, red, purple, purple, red, purple, purple. Try to fit this in. Let me move this up a little bit. Purple, purple, blue. Down here at the 6 o'clock position, purple, blue. Blue, purple, blue. Blue, 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 green. Move this over a little bit. Blue, green, green, blue, green at the 9 o'clock position. Green, 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 yellow, green, yellow, and finally yellow, green, yellow. 20 hues. Move to the, get rid of this one. Move to the pigment file. And the same set of marks. Yellow, 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 red, yellow, red, red, yellow, red, 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 purple, red, purple, purple, red, purple, 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 blue, purple, blue, blue, purple, blue, 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 green. Good, I got that right on the other one. Blue, green, green, blue, green, 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 yellow, green, yellow, and yellow, green, yellow. There, that way it's easy to see when we start mixing out all these strings, you're going to know exactly where they need to go. So that's going to do it for this one. I think we're a little bit under the, maybe just under the 30-minute mark. So the next video then, we will get into, I'll show you the pigments that you're going to need, and we'll start mixing strings and applying them to the value scale. Thank you very much. Until next time.